Thank you everybody for coming tonight. I appreciate you coming out to our tree farm event. Tonight's presentation is actually going to be recorded. So what we're going to do is we're going to put tonight's presentation up on the Maryland Tree Farm website so that those tree farmers who were unable to come out to one of our presentations can actually listen and view this presentation at home on their computers. But thank you all very much for coming out tonight. I greatly appreciate it. It's good to see you. The next slide is going to talk a little bit about what our program is tonight. We're going to do welcome and introductions first thing. And what I'm going to do is sort of explain who I am, who the Maryland Tree Farm program is. Then I'm going to have an opportunity for you all to sort of tell us a little bit about yourselves and your tree farm. Then next we're going to get to the main thing that we came out to talk about tonight, which is what's new with Tree Farm. Talk about that. We're going to talk some of the benefits of being part of the Tree Farm program. Then we'll have a question and answer time where if you have any questions about tonight's presentation or anything else related to Tree Farm, you can ask and we will do our best to answer. And then finally, the best part of the evening, we're going to have some door prizes and then we'll dismiss for the evening. So that's kind of our agenda for tonight. So welcome and introductions. I'm going to give you a moment to think about what you might want to say while I introduce myself. My name is Kenneth. I work with the Maryland Department of Natural Resources Forest Service, and I am also, one of my job duties is I am the program administrator for the Maryland Tree Farm Committee. The Maryland Tree Farm Committee is co-sponsored by the Maryland DNR Forest Service. It is a private program, a national program, but it's sponsored in each state by an individual organization or agency, and in Maryland it's sponsored by the DNR. Also here tonight is Aaron Cook. He is our project forester in Washington County where our presentation is being recorded, and he's here to assist with any questions or anything else. Also here is Jonathan Kays from the University of Maryland at Cooperative Extension. Jonathan has been the one there with the technical savvy that's been able to set this up for recording, and thank you, Jonathan, for that. And so that's who we are. Tell us a little bit about yourselves. We'll start with you, sir. Let me tell you a little bit about the Tree Farm Committee. This photo here on the screen, these are the folks, or some of the folks. I don't think the entire committee was there the day we took this picture. But those are the folks that work on your Maryland Tree Farm Committee. And basically it's a pretty diverse group. We have some agency folks such as myself. We have a tree farmer, actually multiple tree farmers from across the regions. We have one tree farmer from every region. There's 4 regions in the state. And then we have some county representatives. We have some foresters, some private foresters, some industrial foresters. And we also have one person from a county agency, one person from a federal agency. So we have a pretty diverse group. And they are out here working for you and your program. So what does the Maryland Tree Farm Committee do? Well, the committee oversees the program in Maryland. We basically have 3 to 4 committee meetings a year where we meet to kind of go over things. One of the big things that we do is every year around Arbor Day, which is the first Wednesday in April in Maryland, we distribute tree seedlings to all of the state legislative offices, the senators and the delegates. And we give them a little tree seedling, say Happy Arbor Day, and we let them know that the Maryland Tree Farm program is out there and that tree farmers are very interested in what they do in the legislature and making sure that the interests of tree farmers are taken care of. So that's one thing we do every year. Also at that same event, we have a recognition event down with the senators and delegates of the Tree Farmer of the Year, as well as our Tree Farm Inspector of the Year. And Mr. Aaron Cook, as a matter of fact, was our Inspector of the Year for 2014. So he was down there. He was all dressed up in a suit, looking sharp, and so we had a real nice presentation. But we do that every year. There's a proclamation read on the Senate and the House of Delegates floor so that they are certainly aware of what the Tree Farm program is doing in Maryland. Also, every year there is what's called a National Leadership Conference that takes place in a city across the U.S. This year, it was actually held in St. Louis, Missouri. So we sent 3 representatives from our Tree Farm Committee, went out there, talk about the national program a little bit, things that are new. We also oversee the inspections. All of you in the tree farm program know that every periodically you get inspected, and those inspections are recorded in the database, and the tree farm committee keeps track of that. We organize field tours. I can't recall, we had a field tour out here not that long ago. Yeah, so we have multiple field tours that we sponsor. We also sponsor various educational workshops and events. We work with, for example, county forestry boards to do various educational events. We also sponsor a student at Allegheny College. We have a scholarship that we provide every year. That scholarship actually does give favoritism to students that come from tree farm families, but it's not limited to that. Any student that's interested can apply. And then we also get involved to a small degree with legislation and policy. It's not a big emphasis of the Tree Farm Committee, but we do do a little bit of that. And I'll give you one example. A couple of years ago, the Maryland law for licensing of foresters was set to sunset. That it's up for sunset every 10 years. And so we had a couple of Maryland tree farmers who went and testified before the House Environmental Matters Committee that said, we like this law, it's very important for us, and please continue to keep this on the book. And the legislators did listen to the voice of the tree farmers, and that law was continued to be passed. So those are some of the things that the Maryland Tree Farm Committee does. Now, moving on to the second part of what we wanted to talk about tonight, which is what's new with Tree Farm. Well, before we can get into what's new, we have to talk a little bit about a little history. And the first thing I want to bring to your attention is that the Tree Farm program started back in 1941. So if you do the math, next year is 2016. You'll discover that Tree Farm will be celebrating its 75th anniversary next year. So the Tree Farm program has been around for 75 years. It's the oldest conservation program devoted to private land. And that's exactly the reason it started. It was to focus on recognition and promotion of good forestry on private lands. That was the whole idea of the program. It actually started out on the West Coast in the state of Washington. Since 1941, it has grown nationwide. From 1941 to 2009, the program grew and expanded, and currently there's 82,000 tree farmers across the nation managing 24 million acres. So you can see it's a rather large program. Maryland joined the national program in 1948. We were the 21st state to join, and we currently have about 980 tree farmers, just under 1,000 tree farmers, managing 180,000 acres, or 5% of Maryland's woodland. So you can see the Tree Farm program is pretty large nationally. It's also pretty significant right here in the state of Maryland. As I said, it's a national program, but it's run individually in each state by a state committee. So it's a national program, but it's very responsive to local needs. So you'll see that the last slide I was highlighted that year 2009. Well, what happened in 2009? This is 2015. So that was 6 years ago. What happened then in 2009 was Tree Farm changed from a recognition program, which is what it was from 1941 to 2009, to a certification program. And that's the main reason that we wanted to get together and talk to you all a little bit about what's new with Tree Farm. The new thing is Tree Farm has become a certification program. So why did that change occur? Well, over the couple of decades before 2009, there's been a lot of social concerns about sustainability of the forest and where wood comes from and was this produced sustainably, that type of thing. So people wanted to basically know that their products were made without harm to the environment. And that's what a certification program does. It communicates to people that your wood or their products were produced from a sustainable source. So, in a little bit more detail, a certification program basically has a set of formalized standards. Right back in 1941, there was always standards to be part of the tree farm program. You had to have a management plan, you had to be following it, but it's a little bit more detailed now. There's 8 standards. We'll actually go through them in a little bit more detail later in the program, but it's a little bit formalized. Another key thing besides the formalized program standards are every 5 years we get assessors that come into the state. They're actually just like auditors, but they prefer to be called assessors. And what they will do is take a look at the program here in the state to make sure that the tree farmers in the state and the Maryland Tree Farm Committee are in fact in compliance and following the standards. So to be part of the tree farm program, you actually, if you are picked for an assessment, you do have to participate. It's just a random, they pick a sampling of 20 tree farmers. As I said, we had 980 tree farmers in the state, and they only picked 20 to sample, so it's a small representative sample. But if you get picked, you do have to participate. And we've gone through 2 of these assessments in the state of Maryland since it turned into a certification program. And actually, we have found that most tree farmers are very happy. If they get the lucky number and are drawn to be part of the assessment, they're actually pretty happy because they get to show somebody what they're doing on the tree farm, the good stuff they've been doing. They have a chance to show off. So that really has been kind of a benefit for tree farmers to get to show off what they're doing. And then also as a result of the program standards and the assessments, then a report is produced. It's open for anyone to, it's actually published on the internet. Anyone can take a look at that and find out exactly what's going on. So it's documented that in fact the program is following the standards that have been developed to ensure forest sustainability. So what does that mean for you all in your tree farm? Well, the bottom line is no major on-the-ground changes. Tree farmers have always practiced good forestry. They're continuing to practice good forestry. That being said, there are a few things that tree farmers need to know. And the most important thing that you need to know is that under the standards, there is a strong emphasis on making sure that your management plan, the written document that guides your forestry actions on your property, addresses all of the standards and that you are following that plan. That's the most important thing. So if you have a management plan and you're following it, you're good. So, as I said, if you have a plan and you're following it, you're good. The one thing that is important to realize, though, is forestry plans are written for long time periods. Trees grow slowly, and so typically when a plan is prepared, it's prepared for a 15-year window. However, the program standards, the certification standards for tree farm, are evaluated and changed every 5 years. So you have a plan that's 15 years and standards that change every 5 years. So occasionally you may need to update your plan to cover something new that's in the standards. Now I will tell you that the first set of standards came out in 2009. The second standards just came out, and there wasn't a whole lot of change. There was a few minor little changes, but what I'm saying is every 5 years it's not going to be a dramatic change, but the science improves, and there's a few things that when the new standards come around, they say, oh, we should have addressed this, let's make sure we put that in there. So those type of things do need to be updated. The good news about all this is that updating your plan is easy and it's free. And the reason it's easy is because foresters like Aaron will be doing it for you, not me. That's the reason I can say it's easy. Maybe not so easy for Aaron, but it's easy for me, it's easy for you, and it is free. The Maryland Forest Service, as I said, is a co-sponsor of the Tree Farm program. So we are happy to take a look at your plan as tree farmers, to review it, compare it against the standards, and if there's any updates that need to be done, we will do those for you. That update, in fact, has a name. It's called an addendum. It's basically a little attachment that goes to your plan that talks about the standards that need to be in there. And what we have done is we actually have prepared sort of a standard template, a standard addendum document, because we know the new things in the standards that primarily need to be addressed. And so we've kind of gotten that, and all Aaron really has to do is take a look at your tree farm and sort of address those things, and it's pretty easy to do. So, what are the certification standards? As I said, there are 8 of these. There are 8. We're going to go through them very briefly. The very first one, and probably the most important one, as I mentioned before, is a commitment to practicing sustainable forestry by developing a written management plan. That written management plan is very, very important for the standards, and it has to address all of the standards that we're going to be going through. The second standard is to ensure that you follow all relevant forestry laws, and typically in our stewardship plans we'll tell you about the laws that are pertinent to your property that you need to be following. So they're pretty basic. That's usually not an issue. Another thing, the third standard has to do with reforesting. If you have a forest harvest, you need to make sure that trees go back in there, either planted or natural regeneration. So that also is a standard. The fourth standard has to do with protecting air, water, and soil, and that is done by following best management practices. And those are a set of standard guidelines that are sort of established that if you follow those, you know that you'll be protecting primarily the soil, which could erode and get into the water. So we want to make sure that doesn't happen through use of best management practices. So that's the fourth standard. The fifth standard has to do with protecting fish, wildlife, biodiversity, and forest health. Pretty standard stuff. Tree farmers are always doing that. The sixth standard has to do with recognizing the value of forest aesthetics. For example, if you're planning a harvest or something like that, to do your best to make sure that it's aesthetically pleasing as possible. We know, obviously, that forest harvests are not always good looking, shall we say, but there are ways to make it better looking. The seventh standard has to do with protecting special sites, and the special site that is of most concern that we found are cemeteries. We found a lot of tree farms have old family cemeteries that are out there in the woods, and they're not actually documented in the plan. We need to document those in the plan. So if Aaron comes out or one of our foresters comes out, they'll probably ask you, are you aware of any cemeteries on your property? And if you say yes, then he'll ask you where it is. We'll make a little notation on the map, and that is a special site that needs to be protected. And then the final standard is that all forest activities are conducted according to the plan. So you can see standard number 1 has to do with having a plan, and standard number 8 has to do with following the plan. So as I said, one of the primary important things for certification standard is making sure you have a plan and that it is followed. So, as I said, how does this affect your tree farm? You guys are already doing this on the ground. Once Aaron comes out and does the plan addendum, it'll bring you up to speed, and then you should be good. As I said, preparing these addendums are free. All you have to do, you can either contact Aaron in advance or you can wait until he calls you. Aaron has a list of all the tree farmers in his county, as do our other foresters across the state, and they're just going down that list and they're contacting tree farmers to get these addendums done. So, are there any questions about any of that before I move on to tree farm program benefits? I know we've covered a lot of information in a short amount of time. Yes, sir.
Which counties might have the most in the program? In Maryland.
Okay. The question was, which counties have the most tree farms in the state? What I will tell you is in western Maryland is where most of our tree farms are. Allegheny County is actually number 1, and I think Frederick County is actually number 2. And then Washington and Garrett are in between. Then also the Eastern Shore is the second highest location of where most of our tree farms are. We have a large concentration in the 3 most southern counties on the lower shore. And then central and southern are sort of in between. Probably the lightest area for tree farms in the state is central Maryland. As you can imagine, it's the more developed part of the state. So, good question. Any other questions? Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit about tree farm program benefits. One of the primary benefits is a wealth of information that is available to you online. Right there on the slide is the internet address. If you go to www.treefarmsystem.org, you can find out just about anything about tree farm. There's also a little button on there. If you have a question, you can just click on that button and say, I have a tree farm in whatever your county is, and I wanted to ask about X, Y, and Z. And what happens is that funnels through the national office. It comes to me as a program administrator for the state. And then, of course, I won't know the answer, so I'll send it out to someone like Aaron, one of our field foresters. They'll give the answer back to me. I'll provide it to national office, and boom, right back to you. So all you really have to do is just submit your question, and then it'll go through a process, and we will get you an answer. So not only is there a wealth of information, but it's very easy to contact the program. If you have any questions at any time, ask, and you'll get an answer. One of the main benefits that we've already talked about is the certification program. That is a major benefit. When there's actually, Tree Farm is not the only certification program out there. There are two other certification programs, but they are basically for large industrial or agency landholders with thousands of acres. Tree Farm is really the primary certification program for private lands. There are a couple other private land certification programs, but Tree Farm has been in existence the longest and has a well-established network for private land. So certified wood really will not at the present time give much of a market benefit in regards to price, but it does get you a little bit better market access. Some buyers, particular pulpwood buyers, are more interested in buying certified wood. So if you're in the Tree Farm program, you have certified wood, they'll be more interested in buying your wood versus non-certified wood. So that is part of the market benefit that comes with the certification program. The other benefit we already mentioned briefly is recognition through our annual Tree Farmer of the Year competition. The gentleman there that's pictured is Rick Abond and his wife Kathy, and they were our Tree Farmers of the Year in 2014. Rick and his wife actually rose up to the regional level, so they were one of the top 8 tree farms nationally in 2014, and that's his tree farm in the background. It's over on the Eastern Shore. Rick has done a lot of great stuff out on his tree farm. Another benefit to being part of the Tree Farm program is a website. It's called mylandplan.org. I passed out a little bookmark which gives that web address to you. There's a lot of good tools on there for tree farmers. For example, if you like to keep track of your activities on the tree farm, there's a spot where you can just sort of enter your activities and kind of keep track of them. You can sort of develop some general plan objectives for your property. There's all kinds of things on that website. So I would encourage you, if you have not been there, to take a look at that website. Another benefit is this magazine. It's called Woodland Magazine. It's a high-quality magazine. There's a sample that I passed out that you can take a look at. And it has not only stories about tree farmers, but just general woodland interest articles. So a lot of good stuff in there. I'd encourage you to take a look at that. And if you would like to subscribe, you can certainly do that. It's a quarterly magazine. So the other thing, I mentioned earlier that the state committee does not get involved heavily in policy and legislation, but at the national level, the National Tree Farm Office does. And they are down there on Capitol Hill constantly working on the behalf of tree farmers nationwide on various policy issues in the Congress that relate to forestry and private forest landowners and that type of thing. They don't do it by themselves. They join with other forestry organizations and coalitions, but they're doing good stuff down there on Capitol Hill all the time for tree farmers. Another thing, another benefit that you get as being part of the tree farm program is quick and easy access to resource professionals such as Aaron and local foresters. In the state of Maryland, we have, I think it's 86 certified inspectors. That's both agency personnel and consulting and private foresters who have been through the tree farm program to become certified inspectors, so they know the program inside and out. And you have access to any one of those 86 that you choose to work with. Of course, you probably would work with the forester closest to you locally, but there are 86 certified inspectors across the state to help you manage your woodland. There's also the Tree Farmer Network, yourselves, 980 other tree farmers across the state. Whenever we get together for woodland events or tours or whatever, there's that opportunity to talk, exchange ideas, what you did on your property, find out what other folks have done, talk about problems you had. Chances are other people have had the same problem. You can learn a lot just from other tree farmers through that Tree Farmer Network. As I said, it is a national program. It is one of the longest national programs that's been out there, but it has that local impact. And it's always looking to the future. As I said, one of the reasons that Tree Farm moved from recognition to certification is looking to the future for that certified market that's certainly bound to grow. 20 years ago, the market for organic foods, for example, organic tomatoes, probably didn't exist. When you go to the supermarket today, what do you see? A lot of food labeled with the little organic stickers. The same thing will probably be happening with wood and certified wood. So the Tree Farm program recognized that, where the market was going, and moved in that direction. So it's looking to the future for the benefit of those who are in the program. So that's basically it as far as the structured part of the program. We talked a little bit about what the Tree Farm Committee does, who is on the committee. We talked a little bit about the big changes in the program, which is basically it moved from a recognition program to a certified program, sort of what that meant, sort of what the certification standards were. And then lastly, we went over the many benefits that are out there as far as being part of the program. So at this time, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them. Anything at all. And as you're thinking about that, and if you don't have any questions, that's good. And if you do, we can always be reached locally. This is our local email address, marylandtreefarm@gmail.com. You can reach, actually, if you type in an email to that address, the email will come to me. Once again, I probably won't know the answer. I'll send it out to Aaron. But you can either contact us locally, or you can go on the national website and contact us that way. We are easily accessible to answer any questions that you have at any time. And of course, if you're working with the certified inspector, you just pick up the phone, give them a call. It's easy to get information. So with that, what we're going to do is go ahead and conclude our program with some door prizes. And then we can go home. And if you have any questions, we can talk informally after the program.